Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Brand new.
Hey, we're talking brand new Joe. Hey, we're on a brand new show. Deep dive, blow by blow. Spotting Uzis and crossbow. Like a buzzball or pogo. Got ninjas like Don Shadow. Comics are how I spend my dough. We're coming to you in stereo. It's time for Talking Joe. With Mark and Tim, here we go.
Brand new.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe Weekly, the G.I. Joe Comics podcast. We'll be talking about latest comics happenings, and that includes the events of G.I. Joe Issue 9, which came out just this past week, Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. And, as always, I will be joined by my co-host, it's a real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners and viewers. We got so many messages last week. Mark was telling me about my absence. And I just want to assure everyone that in missing last week's episode, everything was fine. Mark said, Tim business. What happened was we had scheduled a skip week because I thought I was going to take a trip to a birthday party, and then I wasn't. And I love this show, but also when we have a skip week, it's nice because I get the day back. And then Mark said, sort of last minute, actually, there's enough to talk about. Can we do a mini episode? And I had dropped my phone 1 day earlier or 2 days earlier, and it was not working anymore. And so I was going to get my new phone when Mark said, let's do an episode anyway. And I said, nah. So now I have a new phone, and everything was
Welcome
fine.
to the 21st century, Tim.
It was a smartphone. It was just 8 years old. And thanks to Jason Morrell for subbing in. And I listened to that episode just a few hours ago, so I'm all caught up.
Excellent stuff. We will be talking today about G.I. Joe issue 9, released 16th of July, which the synopsis says, who is Raptor? Meanwhile, Cover Girl and the Baroness are about to find out as they fight for their lives. Meanwhile, Clutch and Hound investigate Cobra's Energon weapons. We'll find out if all of those things happen in the comic. Spoiler, they do in a moment. So last time, as Tim points out, we were joined by Jason Morrell to do a dash through some of the news, which included Cold Slither comic book, G.I. Joe issue number 7, second print variants, the G.I. Joe trade paperback volume 3 that was revealed with a bit of a spoiler for what is to come, Andrea Milana's Instagram, G.I. Joe issue 1 cover variant from Mark Brooks for San Diego, Void Rivals issue 20 recap, Transformers issue 22 recap, San Diego panel news, Dan Mora and Robert Kirkman on issue 25, and Energon Universe cartoon rumors. So,
issue 25 of Transformers.
Yes. So, yes, Dan Mora and Robert Kirkman will be the new Transformers team with issue 25 of Transformers. So lots of news, and if you want to dig all the way into that, check out that last episode. Tim, was there any of those particular subjects that, as you were listening to myself and Jason discussing them, that you really wanted to opine with your own view?
Yes. Did I mispronounce Jason's last name just a few minutes ago? It's funny because you make a friend on the internet in fandom, and then you see this person on the internet and in person at a convention, and you drink with them and eat with them and try to play the G.I. Joe deck building game with them, but you can't get around to it because there are too many things to do. And then that person substitutes for you 1 week on your podcast, and you realize, I don't know how to say this person's name because I've only called them by their first name and seen it spelled out. As you two were talking about the new creative team on Transformers, I thought it's probably just as well I wasn't doing this episode because I would have talked about Dan Mora for 9 minutes. Your episode would not have been plus or minus an hour. It would have been plus or minus 2. So let's see if I can do this in 2 sentences. I had expected to somehow be disappointed in the announcement of the new writer-artist team taking over for the third year of Transformers. Amazingly, Skybound did the opposite. And they grabbed, in many ways, sort of the least likely and most exciting artist they could. Someone who I thought was exclusive to DC, minus a bunch of covers for Boom. And the other thing I'll say is you both phrased very nicely sort of the difference between Jorge Corona's art and Dan Mora's art. I'm very excited about Dan Mora on Transformers. He is a 2-book-a-month guy. He can and sort of does draw 2 monthly comics for DC with an asterisk that sort of confounds me. Because for a while he was drawing Shazam and Batman Superman World's Finest. And then he left Shazam to do Absolute Power. And then he's been doing Justice League Unlimited and Superman, except every 3 months he misses an issue of one of those because I think he's doing so many covers for DC and also Boom. And if that's his choice, because covers are fun and they pay better, and maybe they're kind of easy compared to like a complicated page with 6 or 8 panels, more power to him. Or if, someone at DC is like, we have to put him on every book somehow. He's so popular. His stuff is so attractive. Yeah, he'll miss an issue of Shazam every 3 months. But then we can get more Nightwing covers, right? And the people at Boom, where he had an earlier career with Klaus, with Grant Morrison, that Santa Claus book. People at Boom, I'm sure, are very excited. Like, oh, he's doing more Power Rangers covers. Anyway, I sure hope that A, Dan Mora doesn't miss any issues of Transformers. B, as they seem to be good at, Skybound has banked some issues in advance so that Mr. Mora does not miss any issues of Transformers. And C, if he does miss any issues starting in a few months when he's doing, I guess, a book for DC and a book for Skybound every month, I hope it's the DC book that he misses every few months of. All that said, if I seem a little cranky about an amazing artist not being able to do 2 monthly books all the time, man, even drawing 1 book a month is hard. So it's pretty impressive that Dan Mora can do 1.8 monthly books. Let's talk about G.I. Joe.
Yeah, let's have a look around at what's going on around the Energon universe since this time last week.
All around the skybound world, are you looking for some G.I. Joe? There's Autobots and Decepticons and creatures from the sacred brain. All we need is Energon, sweet Energon. There'll be Energon everywhere. There'll be robots swinging, aliens killing, and Decepticons in the streets. Yeah!
So, first up, an update on the Void Rivals box set coming as a San Diego exclusive. So this will contain a new cover variant to Void Rivals issue 1, Jetfire, and 2 3 3/4 inch Void Rivals toys of Derek and Celia. And as part of the Hasbro Fan Expo Hong Kong ACG, which is happening the same weekend as San Diego, they've revealed some new images of that set covering Jetfire, plus the 2 little guys there. Look at them. Aren't they sweet, Tim?
This pushes a lot of sort of happy buttons for me in the way that, was it a year ago that those 4 Ghostbusters O-ring figures were revealed? And I thought, they did it. They made it look like I would have wanted them to, thought they could have, hoped it would have made them look in, 1984 or 1986. These are quite charming. And I look forward to detailed reviews from toy experts in just over a week, telling me things like the plastic for the hands is no good, or the O-ring. I'm being serious. I hope these are amazing. I'm sure they're not perfect, and we'll definitely know about it. Now that we're seeing close-up images, or maybe I'm just finally paying attention, I'm seeing a Zartan lower half and some Baroness thighs that I guess I didn't notice before.
Yeah, it does look like they're making use of Baroness, and Zartan on the lower halves here. They recently made those figures in the classic style, in the classic O-ring style, as part of their Transformers collaborative series. So Baroness came with the Megatron Hiss Tank, and Zartan came with, I believe, the Thunder Machine that converted into Soundwave. So I think this is coming from the same team, and some of those initial kind of G.I. Joe re-releases weren't especially great. There was a lot of grumbling about particularly the Duke figure that was re-released that really was not very good, and the Cobra Trooper and Cobra Officer had some issues with them. But it seems like these last few that they've been doing as part of this collaborative series have been pretty popular. I haven't really seen people grumbling about them, so I think they seem to have got the magic formula a little better lately. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to these. I'm quite excited to getting these on a heavy discount in about a year's time.
Is that what happens to the San Diego exclusives? I thought they always sell out.
It's more the collaborative series, the Transformers series. They typically go in with a relatively high price point, and then you still see them in the discount outlets about, let's say, a third or a quarter of the original price.
Oh, okay. And then, do we know anything else about? Are there other exciting? I mean, I don't mean panels, but in terms of toys or comics, do we know anything concrete about the main offerings at San Diego?
The main thing on my radar is all of the Cold Slither offerings. So there's various bits being offered. So the main thing is the classified box set directly from Hasbro, but then there's also going to be a live music show, and on the back of that there'll be an album. Super 7 are re-releasing their Zartan as a San Diego exclusive, and there's things like a record, pins, all sorts of interesting, fun Cold Slither associated merch. Do go on over to Full Force for the updates there. They've posted some of the recent ones.
I look forward, Mark, in 2 months, 3 months, to spending 120 minutes with you, going over in minute detail this Cold Slither comic book, its story, its art, its color, all of its covers. And then we'll probably talk about the original episode and then sort of surrounding stuff that has happened, the unlicensed fan, merchandise. So if you folks are feeling like we're talking a lot about Cold Slither right now because these announcements, just wait till we're really talking a lot about Cold Slither.
Okay, the next final bit of news to cover is the Solicits G.I. Joe issue number 12, which will be out October 15th. Two exciting elements to this. First of all, we've got a new guest artist, Marco Fordera, who is not a name I'm familiar with, but I did do a little Google, and it looks like this person, Marco Fordera, will be quite a good fit for G.I. Joe based on what I have seen of their art. But burying the lead, this looks to be another of those Night Force sort of intermediate issues where we take the spotlight off of the main story to look at what's going on in the world of Night Force with the introduction of fan favourite Shooter. How can she join Night Force when she is imprisoned in Darklonia? Lady J has a plan. So, Shooter introduced as a Night Force character in the classified toy universe. Here it looks like she's got a different look. So, classified and the Energon Universe are two separate things, but cross-pollinating, let's say. And this looks to be an exciting development. Tim, are you enthused for this?
Absolutely. Shooter is a character that we've talked a little bit about before, who has this funny, sort of non-existent, retroactive, Easter eggy, very limited history. And Larry Hama had a fun anecdote about this character, this toy, when we interviewed him at Joe Fest just last month. Listen to that episode, folks. If you were looking at this image on screen right now, listeners, viewers, and noting a discrepancy because Andrea Milana still gets billed as artist of the issue in the preview cover image, but then the art is credited to this new fill-in artist to the right of that, Marco Federa. Oftentimes in the catalogs and the solicits, stuff is being fine-tuned and they're just sort of copying and pasting some element from the previous month, like a logo and a corner box, and then sort of updating as necessary. So I'm sure even 2 months from now, 3 months from now, when we're talking about issue 12, there's a good chance that if someone happens to Google the cover of G.I. Joe 12 while we're talking about it, they'll get this early uncorrected version. So the confusion could live on.
Indeed. So we are today talking about issue number 9, and that issue is brought to us from the creative team of writer Joshua Williamson, artist Andrea Milana, colorist Lee Loughridge, editor Russ Wooton, editor Ben Abernethy, publication design Andres Juarez, and production Ashby Florence. This issue is not just is not just credits. It is also brought to us from a series of people who do those things on the front of the book. What are they called, Tim?
Outer wrappings?
I think that's the normal phrase, yeah.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A is drawn and colored by Tom Reilly. We are up on a roof looking at Cover Girl. We see the top half of her. Behind her, she's kneeling. Standing on a ledge behind her is the Baroness. These two characters and this foreground rooftop are somewhat knocked out in blue. Everything behind them, which is Paris, right? Downtown Paris with little houses and rooftops and gorgeous European architecture, right? This surely is not Cincinnati or Tampa or...
It's not Vegas. It's not Blackpool. It's not Crystal Palace.
It's not New York. Everything behind them is, including the sky and even the Eiffel Tower, has a sort of a pale lavender with a bit of pink-orange to it. They are in Paris. Baroness has a sniper rifle. So too does Cover Girl. They are paying attention sort of at something down on the street off to the right. In the distance is a big Eiffel Tower. And I'm noting how crisp and straight all of its lines are. And I wonder if Tom Reilly found a good image or 3D model of the Eiffel Tower here and traced it, which is not me being critical. That's not a cheat. That's just a smart shortcut. Cover Girl is slightly turning her head toward us and is looking kind of at us, although she has just ejected the bullet shell, the casing, from her sniper rifle, and it is actually in midair, like 2 inches above her rifle. So she has just fired, but hears something or sees something over where we are, or sort of above our right shoulder. This is a cover with a lot of intrigue. It is not an action cover, but it is definitely the moment after a bit of action, or maybe before some action. There's a sense of danger here, like someone might get them, or Cover Girl's irked that she missed. No, it's not that. It's not that. But it's a cool cover. And oh, you know what I just realized? Can you go back to the previous image with the logo? Because Mark's been toggling between the one with the logo and the one without. The corner box on the regular A cover under the Skybound logo has the Baroness's head, Major Blood's head, Cover Girl's head, and Hound's head. That's really funny, right? I mean, it's funny because this corner box with heads, refers to uncanny X-Men Marvel corner boxes of the 1980s. The idea behind the Marvel corner box, right? We think of this Herb Trimpe drawing of, it's probably definitely Grunt, one fist pumping up in the air and the other hand holding a machine gun, which was on most of the issues of Marvel G.I. Joe. The idea behind a corner box is, if you are, I can even demo it because I'm holding 2 comic books. If your newsstand or a comic book store has more comics than it can fit, they fan them. So they put maybe the new one in front and the older one or the lesser one for a different series behind it. But they might bump it over a couple inches so you can see the first word or letters of the title. And as I'm demonstrating here, even if you don't know what comic is behind G.I. Joe here, you see Starscream in the corner box, and then you see the letter T, and you think, oh, Transformers. So here we see this G.I. Joe corner box, which has 3 G.I. Joe characters and an Autobot. So that means it's G.I. Joe. That's fun.
That's cool.
Cover B is drawn by Andrea and Milana, also colored by a playing card. Takes up almost all of the space of this cover, and it's a queen. On the top half, we see the Baroness holding a pistol in both hands, ready to shoot off toward the right. And then on the bottom, not the traditional mirror image upside down. It's not the same Baroness now doing the same thing upside down and to the left. It is, in fact, Cover Girl in a different pose, but holding a pistol. She's got her jacket on. Both of them, there's a sense of some wind blowing or some motion, like they're turning, because both of them, their hair is a bit sort of tousled and sort of on a secondary arc, like a little bit of sort of whiplash, like finishing the move, with some bits of, I don't know, dust, debris, feathers around them, behind them. And then the other sort of half of the cover that's not the playing card is just a black background, except for 7 more shapes, which to me say other playing cards. But these are neither the fronts nor the backs. We don't see like a pattern. We don't see, a king and a 10 and a 2 of spades or anything. They're all just white, which to me says either Milana ran out of time and didn't want to draw other stuff, or the focus of this cover is so much about these 2 characters on this one queen card that there is no art for the other ones. It does read a little bit as an error to me, but I don't mind. For a moment when I first saw it, because they don't have any information or color drawn on them, it actually didn't read as 7 other cards, right? It sort of read as like the negative space in a gear, or the negative space of like sprocket holes of a frame of film. But of course, it's other cards. And the sort of angle and spacing of all these cards to me says like a deck of cards has been tossed, and these are like in midair, and this is the one that's closest to us. Cover C is drawn and colored by Alan Quah. This is the 1 in 10 retailer variant. This connects with the previous issues where we are looking on a table or a desk at sort of scraps and file material. In this case, it's one big photo of Major Blood. He now has his eye patch. There are some bullets. There's a compass. There's a camera. We see a bit more of 2 different maps. There's a bit of a knife or a dagger. The photo of him is sort of at a diagonal. There's a big red X over his face. And then you realize the red X was made by lipstick. No, folks, it's not a prop from a live-action G.I. Joe movie, which was used to test the DNA of the president to see if it's actually Zartan. It is real lipstick because I guess this story involves 2 women, and women wear lipstick, which is fine. But what this suggests is that someone is targeting Major Blood, or maybe in sort of the story of this cover, he's already been assassinated. He's already been taken out, right? You put an X through the person that you've fired a bullet by your gun. Cover ABCD. Cover D is drawn by John Amor. This is another of these 1980s G.I. Joe toy package style illustrations with a single character with no physical background, but that red and orange and white Hector Garrido style explosion. In this case, it is not a G.I. Joe or a Cobra character or some scientist or politician or even a human being. It is an alien robot from the planet Cybertron. It's a green Jeep. Your friend, my friend, it's Hound. It's Clutch's friend, Hound. And he's taking a step forward. And this is a really nice drawing. He's got his sort of, bulky proportions and his signature weapon. I forget what it does, if it shoots, ice pellets or a tractor beam. All those 1984 Transformers lasers, all their handhelds did different fun gimmicky things according to their tech specs. Were you saying, Mark, in the previous episode with Jason, were you saying that this cover had been redacted?
Yeah, I think so. I think this was redacted at one point in the original solicits. Yeah.
Yeah. So, folks, if you, for some reason, are Googling G.I. Joe 9 125 ratio cover D variant and you get a black rectangle that says classified, you are looking for the version that has a green robot on it. And then the other two, are these retailer exclusives?
No, we've got a cover E, which is a 1 in 50 incentive by Ito, which is Baroness from the waist up. And if you're looking at this and thinking, is that in oils or is this in digital but with an oil effect? Tim, what would be your guess of those two options?
It's harder and harder to tell these days. I mean, even 20 years ago, you could get really good watercolor effects in a computer program called Painter, but I'm going to guess it's actual paint on canvas.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, cool.
There it is. So this by Ito is an actual painting. Its original size is 14 by 20 inches, and the medium is oils. So an impressive oil painting. If you've ever heard people say that Baroness is no oil painting, you would be wrong. She is. Definitive.
Oil is sort of notoriously challenging to work with because it takes so long to dry, and you need turpentine or linseed oil to thin your paint and to sort of mix colors. Those smell, they can be toxic, but there's such a translucency to oil that you do not get in acrylic. Watercolor is, as the first half of that word implies, watercolor is very transparent because it's water-based. Gouache is sort of halfway between watercolor and acrylic, and the previous paragraph represents everything I know about paint. But it's pretty unusual to have a comic book cover painted in oil. And this image, it's like 11 a.m. daylight that is hitting the Baroness from high above. She's wearing aviator sunglasses. Her complexion is very yellow because of the sunlight. The blue of the sky behind her matches the blue of her sort of shoulder and arm armor. She's holding a pistol with a silencer. Some smoke is coming out of it, which also sort of picks up on the clouds. Behind her, there's an indication of some buildings. Sort of feels like she's on a balcony or a rooftop because of the perspective, right? She is not down on the street. This is pretty painterly. It's not like 100% tight and rendered and perfectly finished. You can see brush strokes, right, in her hair and the buildings. It's quite different. And I think this is making an allusion to something in sort of popular illustration history, a particular artist or era or style. And is it Gil Evgren and sort of good girl art of the 50s? I don't know that this is definitely making that reference, but the lighting here reminds me of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one was for sale on Kirby's Comic Art, and it is sold. I don't know what the price was, but it's the kind of piece of art that probably only makes sense putting the level of effort that was gone into by selling the original art rather than the actual amount of money that would be paid by the commissioning publisher. And yeah, we quite often take the Mickey out of the volume of G.I. Joe Baroness covers, but this one does get a pass for me, in part just because it's so handsome, but also clearly they've put an awful lot of effort into it. And that helps. And also I think this particular piece does have a lot of interesting mood to it as well. I can't necessarily put my finger on it completely, but it's not your standard kind of pin up. There's a lot of character sort of coming through.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 2025, even though we know that this is Baroness's modern costume. It feels of a different era. And also the face on the Baroness, the actual sort of anatomy of her eyes, her makeup, her cheekbones, to me, says a little bit less like skinny, hot babe, 2025. Her anatomy looks a little bit more like 40s, 50s, 60s. So there is something, there's a particular sort of combination happening in this cover. But Mark, if you do want to play the Baroness cover connection jingle song, there is a very Baroness cover with no background that's just like skinny, tall, sexy Baroness, very shiny, drawn by an artist who is very much known for that as a retailer exclusive on this very issue. And Mark, what is that cover?
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
It is the 616 Jamie Tyndall exclusive of the Baroness. It comes in two flavors, one that looks like this, and then a foil variant, which is basically the same, but from shins up only. And yeah, very much falling into the standard, here's a full figure Baroness. She's standing, she's poking out her butt, and
hips.
It's not necessarily her hips, and less inspiring, let's say.
I tried to, when Jamie Tyndall was first on my radar 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, it's because he did a Baroness variant cover for IDW, which actually viewers, if you just caught the beginning of the video version of that jingle, that is the first drawing you see, where the Baroness is wearing this like very over detailed extrapolated version of her costume. And she's like very tall and skinny and shiny and hips out and like fully breasted. It's not until this cover that I sort of realized how much Tony Daniel is in Jamie Tyndall, and then this pose is just very J. Scott Campbell, and that he didn't invent this pose, but like when I think of J. Scott Campbell drawing, like Shauna the She-Devil or Rogue from the X-Men just standing there, I think, both feet planted, but like hips all the way out to the right or the left. And I know we've talked about this before, but I do feel like there's a difference between sort of a regular Baroness cover, like the second and third images that just appeared in your video promo, where she's fighting Billy or in front of a fireplace, or this month's G.I. Joe #9 cover where she's standing on a rooftop in Paris. Like those feel story driven versus the sexy Baroness just kind of standing there, maybe with a weapon, maybe not, probably with no background, particularly if she's not in the issue. So folks, I keep threatening Mark to like re-edit his video promo for that jingle, because I actually want there to be just the sort of sexy Baroness covers that are conspicuous and not the sort of earned story ones. Anyway, okay. So G.I. Joe issue 9?
Yes, so let's find out what happens on the inside of the book with a summarized plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
While Baroness is taking a break in Paris, chaperoned by Cover Girl, they are rudely interrupted by Raptor and his flock of avian nasties. He has been hired by Major Blood to track down the Baroness. Major Blood himself arrives, shooting Cover Girl in the shoulder, and while he is distracted by the police, Cover Girl persuades Baroness to stay and help rather than escaping. But they are caught in a net by Raptor and taken to a safe house. Back at the pit, Clutch and Hound talk. Hound has been unable to reach his fellow Autobots, so has decided to stay and help the Joes, but he is weak and needs Energon, something Clutch thinks he can help with. Elsewhere, in a prison hospital, Mercer tracks down and kills the Mars crew member who encountered Starscream previously. And back with Major Blood, he has Baroness and Cover Girl trapped in an arena of sport, sort of, giving them an ultimatum. Cover Girl has to take out the Baroness's eye to live, and Baroness has to kill Cover Girl. And if she doesn't comply, he will kill her parents. The issue ends as Cover Girl appears to stab Baroness in the back. What do you think, Tim?
I thought that this was an exciting issue. Raptor is fun and strange. And it's funny because when Raptor originally showed up in the Marvel book, I completely accepted it as normal and fine. This man in a bird costume who then helps bury Cobra Commander, who's just been assassinated. But Raptor should jump out at me as weird or funny. And I guess I needed a little distance and then to come back to it and then to see this new beefed up costume, which is in its own new way, sort of wonderful and absurd. Like, oh, it's not like wings, like that Disney movie Condor Man. It's this mechanical contraption, and it feels toyetic, and I mean that as a compliment. And he's got some sort of tattoos, on his chest, and the way that he uses his wings feels very. It's quite active, I'm thinking back to Raptor's appearance in the Marvel book, and he doesn't like glide anywhere, right? He's just a guy in a bird suit, right?
It's like his wings previously have just been like a cloak, like decorative, right?
Yeah. Although I think my brother and I once or twice sort of auditioned playing with his Raptor action figure that he could actually not fly like jetpack, but like would glide down from a higher altitude. And then I think pretty quickly my brother took the wings off and just gave Raptor an AK-47 and a somewhat permanent spot on the back of my brother's HISS tank, because he was like a fun visual with this, bird head. Anyway, so I guess we should start by talking about Raptor. Mark, what is your take on this character and his attack and his origin and his look?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of fondness for Raptor from the original toy, but also the original Marvel appearance, because I like that issue that he's most prominently featured in, where he does appear, and because he is so weird, but it seems to, the way that I guess Harmer's writing and the art in that particular issue, it seems to fit, and you don't necessarily question it. But it is a little bit more mundane, and this new classified look and the way that he's approached here, it is, as you say, kind of much more active, much more like a superhero villain, where he's got Wolverine claws on his hands, and he's got these giant wings which are literally flying him about. He's much more of like an action figure rather than an accountant who's been able to track down where the G.I. Joes and send his birds on a relatively believable mission of they just essentially go out and they claw at the APC of the Joes and bring back a bit of material. I'm talking back about the ARA issue here. And so that's more believable and more grounded. Here he's giant mechanical wings flying about, attacking the Joes with not just one bird or two birds, but with a swarm of flock of birds all trained to attack. And then later on in the issue, actually sort of scooping them up in this crazy net thing as well. So sort of very sort of physical presence and threat in the issue, and he does defeat the two Joes ultimately by picking them up in that net. So he's an interesting character. I'm allowing myself that Energon universes can be very different to ARA, and it's out there and it's a bit crazy, but I'm enjoying it. I like it. I'm giving this one an absolute pass.
I think you just about said something which I wanted to say, which is that previously Raptor has been a fun character, but maybe not the most active, the most scary, the most dangerous. And for the like fun, crazy reveal on the last page of the previous issue, from that to just a couple pages of this, he immediately accomplishes his mission and captures two Joes. And so the sort of unbelievability of his costume or the silliness of his technique, I think, is immediately there's this counterpoint. No, he can pull it off. And he is to be reckoned with, and I am worried about them, right? So it's not like a kooky character who's like, I'm going to get you. Hoo, 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 hoo. He just does it.
Although Baroness does try to undercut him a little bit because he is sort of presenting himself as the big bad. He's like, I'm sure you've heard of me, the great bird of prey. I've hunted across the world with my trained aviary. And Baroness says, nope, I don't know you, and I know everyone. So it's sort of taking a bit of the air out of his balloon.
I didn't write this down. That might have been my favorite line in the issue, because that's such good sort of character work that she would try to take him down a peg, because I think she knows that she and Cover Girl are outmatched, particularly if, someone else is nearby who's going to back up Raptor.
And when Raptor appeared originally in ARA 59, as JLS Comics points out, he also had a little bit of snark pointed towards him from Cobra Commander. This bird brain is crazier than Dr. Mindbender. I'm sick and tired of wackos in funny suits. What do you sleep in? A nest?
That is both Larry Hama writing Cobra Commander as Cobra Commander, and also perhaps a meta comment of writer Larry Hama saying to Hasbro, hey, what do I do with all these funny looking characters? This next observation, maybe other people have made it, and maybe it's sort of obvious to everyone, but it just occurred to me. And I know this is sort of what the classified toy line is, but in the way that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you take a cloth Daredevil costume or a mechanical Iron Man suit that can fit in a suitcase or that can fit under a man's clothes, and then you actually have to recreate it with real materials. It's no, it's going to be more padding and more athletic and more like an astronaut space suit, or no, the metal can't be that thin if it's going to fit under his clothes, but we can do it in a briefcase, but it's going to become the suit. This redesign here feels like the sort of, quote, cinematic universe take on Raptor, that if you do a movie with this 80s toy character, you would absolutely not have a man who talks to birds and wears a bird suit. You'd give him this amped up sort of cross with technology. And then the other thing that I thought as I read this issue is, considering how disappointed I was in the Kraven movie that Sony released last year, and that for a moment in comics in 2024, Kraven was sort of an important character again, because he shows up in X-Force, and I think he showed up in a Spider-Man book or two. I can't remember. And right now at the moment, he just wrapped up an appearance in the Predator Spider-Man miniseries, right? But 2024, 2025, because of that movie that's pretty bad, it's kind of the sleeper year of Kraven, the Spider-Man villain at Marvel Comics. And I look at Raptor here, and a little bit of his costume. He's got a vest and a bare chest, and he's wearing pants that are brown, and he's a hunter and something animals, and he's an international guy. And here he is attacking these heroes in Europe. And I've only watched half of the Kraven movie, but he definitely spends an entire scene on a park bench in London talking about the plot. Sorry. But I looked at this and I thought, I'm sort of getting my Kraven fix, my Kraven the Hunter fix from a different Universal Stories. Also, he's got Wolverine claws.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think it's to some degree that's kind of like what the classified toys are, is almost the Marvel Cinematic Universe amplified version of the original toys. And even where they're sort of very similar looking, like the bats, it's sort of all of the textures, and the little sort of on all of the uniform in the same way that in a comic Captain America would just have a blue outfit, but in the in the Marvel animated universe, you've got a Marvel animated view of the world. You kind of have to texturize every single link on his outfit, that kind of thing. Is an interesting parallel. A big part of this particular issue was that struck me was that origin of Raptor, which sort of seemed almost like a comic book almost intentional tropey kind of way of dealing with things. Like, it's like you're in the middle of a piece of combat, but it's like, let me just pause and give you my origin story. Yeah, so this follows the bit where Baroness says that she doesn't know who he is, and then he just breaks into, all my life was about numbers. There is a reason death and taxes are a constant in our lives, and they work together to make my life miserable. I wanted to be free, and I always felt a connection with birds, especially the ones that hunted. And as I trained them, I could see they were also training me. But it wasn't enough. I wanted to do more. I wanted to hunt them too. So I paid a guy to build this suit.
No, wait, I think that final line is kind of a punchline. So I paid a guy to build this suit, right? It's not like, so I spent years perfecting my scientific craft. So I paid a guy to build the suit, right? So I went on Etsy.
Yeah. But these kind of upgrades ain't cheap. So yeah, it sort of, one of the things that struck me about this issue was kind of quite how much the art was kind of leaning into manga sensibilities in the look of the characters and the look of the art, but also in terms of like a slightly tongue-in-cheek, in the middle of an action sequence, let's have an origin story. That feels like it could be something in one of those classic manga stories. I
like this point because, we were just talking about kind of if this scene were a movie. If this comic book issue were a movie, this sort of page of narration and flashback imagery, if it were a movie, I would exhale loudly and wonder why the director is choosing to harm the momentum of this sort of suspenseful moment that's about to be a fight scene or a reveal of the bigger bad, or, like some other force is going to come in and also attack. And I would say, what is this exposition? Stop talking, right? Villain. But because it's a comic book, I turned the page and I thought, yeah, give me an origin montage page. So it's funny how sort of time and my expectations, time flows differently in movies or comics, and my expectations, I can manage them differently. Like, oh yeah, here, good. He's explaining who he is. Not too much, but he gets hit in the face. In terms of you using the word manga, I don't know if we had previously, talking about Andrea Milana's other issues, or the Cobra Commander miniseries, or the Free Comic Book Day issue, I don't know that we'd made that comparison.
I don't think we did.
Okay.
Well, certainly we did with Scarlet, but it struck me more here than I think I have thought previously. It's like, this feels like that he's sort of leaning more into that sensibility.
Yeah, I think part of it is the way that Milana slightly simplifies faces and bodies when they're far away, which plenty of artists do, right? It's not exclusive to manga. There is on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the final panel of page 7. It's the one where Major Blood is jumping up in the air and there are 4 sound effects all in red. Bang, 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 bang. Major Blood's jumping up in the air and he's avoiding the police officers who are firing at him. And this is not the first time Milana has done this, but I really noticed it when I got to this page. The way that Milana is drawing Major Blood's lower leg, it's not the whole leg. It's an abbreviation that disappears in speed lines that shows this leap. And then also there are the speed lines in the background that are sort of curving up on the left under that first bang, and then the top right, and then the bottom right of the panel. So yes, there are a lot of speed lines, and this is something that very much differentiates modern comic art in American comics of the last 20 years from sort of all of the 80s issues of G.I. Joe. There were not any artists drawing G.I. Joe between 82 and 1990 who were influenced by manga. Right? Those artists were influenced by American comic book artists. You know what? Let me backpedal, actually, because Larry Hama has told an anecdote where he goes to a Japanese bookstore and he buys Lone Wolf and Cub as editor at Marvel, and he hands, and these are Japanese language versions that have been imported, and he hands these books to people at Continuity Studios or from his office at Marvel. And he's like, look at how good this is. Look at how good this is. So I don't want to say 100% there's no manga influence on the G.I. Joe comics of the 80s. But, it's not until the 90s that artists like Humberto Ramos or Joe Madureira start bringing in Frank Miller was doing it, right, with Ronin in the early 80s. But it's not until the 90s that several artists are doing it, and on very mainstream projects, not something like Ronin, which was like a prestige project that DC invented for Frank Miller. And now in comics, there's such a big mix where you have artists who are taking sort of equal part cues from American comics, from web comics, from anime and manga, from European comics, from sort of 1950s modernist design, like the animation studio UPA. There's this term that I really don't like, but I'm going to use it here. It is incredibly imprecise, but if you know it, then you know what I mean. The Cal Arts style of animation, like Samurai Jack and Steven Universe. And so I look at Andrea Milana's art and I see a lot of sort of poles happening. I see European comics, I see Japanese comics, I see American comics. And that's even in the line, and that's in speed lines, and that's in sort of how detailed faces aren't, but how detailed backgrounds are. Like when we see this Paris city street on page, I think it's 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6, when Major Blood is walking up toward us. So, is CoverGirl wearing body armor? Because on page 6, the panel after she gets shot, where Major Blood says, "Damn, I was aiming for the doll's head." CoverGirl's hand is on her shoulder in the right, and there's some it's sort of gray stuff around with the blood. And like, that's not bullet shrapnel. And then elsewhere in the issue, she's got some sort of white or gray. I know some of it is the bandage because she gets bandaged up later. But when she wakes up halfway through the book at the centerfold, which, folks, that's the center fold of the comic book. That's what that term means in publishing. I know that has a different connotation for Playboy, but that's because that's
for CoverGirl.
Right. But the centerfold in Playboy, folks, is called the centerfold because it is the center fold. Okay. 1415, the second panel of page 15. What is that square right under "someone stitched up my shoulder"? Is that like another piece of gauze?
I think so.
Okay.
Maybe there's general bandaging, and then specifically they've put one of those bullet bandages. I can't think of the precise wording here for this, but you know how like back in ARA when Ripcord was on Cobra Island and he got shot and he was trying to get the bandage out and put it over his bullet, his wound. It's my guess is it's something like that. Okay. And maybe there's a little bit of sort of artistic interpretation going on here that might not happen in reality, but I guess it's there to emphasize that that's where the wound is, that's where she was shot. And I didn't necessarily get the impression that she was wearing any sort of body armor. Yeah. It does just look like a t-shirt that is getting ripped, and maybe there's just something slightly wonky going on, maybe in the colors that makes it less clear. A field dressing, yeah, that's a good word for it. Thank you, JLS Comics.
And then I did not check, but Mark, you can sometimes have already done this research. Back in issue 5 or 6, when they were fighting in Washington D.C. And then getting beat up by Cobra, every Joe took a hit, like got punched or shot. Does CoverGirl already didn't she already get wounded 3 issues ago?
Yeah, she certainly did get quite badly wounded and burnt, and had like her arm sort of all covered up.
Right.
So I think every time she's been out in combat, she has been pretty badly banged up. So these first few issues of G.I. Joe have not been great for CoverGirl. But at least from what we saw of her the previous issue, it seemed like she'd healed up relatively quickly.
Okay.
One of my thoughts was potentially is that thing that you're seeing as she's getting shot, maybe that's a legacy field dressing or bit of bandaging going on from her last injuries that are still there underneath her t-shirt, possibly.
I have one last thing to say about Raptor. which is this very specific sort of wind turbine attack. Can you go back to this marquee image you have for this live stream? It's the like top half of pages 2 and 3 with the giant sound effect behind him as he's sort of sweeping in and landing. Raptor and then Cover Girl and Baroness are reacting, but they're getting pushed. He didn't kick them.
Right.
The birds aren't sort of picking at them and they're running. There is so much wind being pushed from his wing turbines that they are getting pushed off balance, right? And he's coming down with so much force. Look at all the black stuff that he's kicking up where his ankle, where his foot connects with the ground, right? He makes a kick dent into the ground and all this like cobblestone or brick debris pops up. So this is something that it's another sort of leveling up of the character and his design from the 80s toy and our conception of the character in the 80s to the, the classified version, the Marvel Cinematic Universe version, the Energon Universe version. And I thought this was another thing that went really far in these first couple pages to make me take this character really seriously and be sort of worried about the heroes, because it's not just that he'll send a bird and like someone will get scratched on the cheek, or he's got these claws and he might like tear their shirts, at their stomach and it's just a flesh wound, right? He can like knock them off their feet with this jet thing on his back. Okay, so now we want to talk about Major Blood. So Mark, what about Major Blood?
Yeah, I mean, it's continuing that thing of Major Blood being, a bit of a maniacal, twisted badass, I'd say. He introduced himself with a good day, ladies, boom, shooting Cover Girl. Damn, I was aiming for the doll's head. I'm still not quite used to the change in my depth perception, Got to get a bit closer this time. And then as the police shout, freeze, drop your weapons. Maintenant. He's just got a gleeful expression on his face and, oi, this is going to be fun. And, just sort of jumping out into the air, sort of really gleefully enjoying the experience of battling it out with these police. It's been a minute since I've been able to test out my close quarter skills. Time to show I still got it. Bang, bang, boom, pow, boom. Didn't miss this time good grief. Didn't miss this time as he does actually make head and bullet connect as he had been intending to with Cover Girl. And I love it when they beg. And all of this sort of forcing with a bit of persuasion from Cover Girl, Baroness to once again kind of step up into the heroic role of intervening, attacking Major Blood and sort of protecting those police. So there's this sort of balance of, we're seeing constantly these different sides of Baroness, this care for her parents, ? Desire to sort of flee the scene, but also with only relatively slight prompting, sort of stepping up into this heroic role, but also this background of her being sort of a terrorist, assassin, bad hombre kind of thing, which if she, to some degree, it's we've kind of had this splash page introduction to Baroness back in the pages of Duke, where they've kind of explained how bad she is. But beyond that, it's not really been particularly demonstrated in terms of her actions, let's say.
Yeah, we have this sort of muscle memory, this like legacy impression of her. Well, she's bad because the character has always been bad in 40 years of other comic books, toys, shows, games, movies, except for that one movie where she's not bad. I really like the work that both Joshua Williamson and Andrea Milana do on this page where Cover Girl says to Baroness, Blood and Raptor are only here because of you. You can't run from this. The expression on Cover Girl's face and the body language, she puts her hand on the Baroness's wrist and she's saying, you have to confront him. You can't run. We can't run. Innocent people are going to die, right? We can't just try and save your parents. We have to try and stop this right now. And it's really nice economy of language and acting. And then I've got two comments for the next two pages, which are pages 7 and 8. 8 and 9. So the bottom panel of page 8, which you do have on screen right now, is maybe the only time in the whole issue where color artist Lee Loughridge does sort of an emotional knockout for the background, right? It's a moment of intensity or anger, or fiery passion. And even though blood is not in front of a red wall or a volcano or like laser beams, the background just becomes this sort of orange red. And
significantly the last page as well.
Yep. Even though that happens in a pit where we'd previously been established, it's all like light gray concrete. So Loughridge only does it twice. And I like that. And I want this kind of thing more. And so it's an issue not colored by Jordi Belair. So I'll just do my quick. I do like Lee Loughridge's colors. They are a little bit traditional and sort of calm. And I like the sort of crazy fun, like art pop of Jordi Belair's colors, which I was already used to for 6 issues. And I see this page where it goes from like light orange backgrounds to light blue backgrounds to saturated dark orange background there behind Blood. And Blood is colored darker in that final panel so that the white of his eye really pops, even though the sort of daylight of the scene, like he's colored in that final panel there on page 8 as if it's sunset, and it's not. But the color starts to get emotional and more graphical, and I want Loughridge to play with that more. So this, in terms of color, this was my favorite page. And then what I like about these 2 pages, 8 and 9, in terms of writing and storytelling, in the first panel on page 8, Blood shoots a cop. And then on the second panel, he shoots another. And then on the third panel, he shoots another. And then on the fourth panel, he's about to shoot one who says, wait, please don't. And then on the next page, on page 9, Baroness jumps in and kicks Blood. And I'm going to assume that giant crack sound effect is her foot hitting his armor, not breaking a bone. Although the like bloodthirsty revenge seeker in me wishes that she's breaking some bones of his. 2 panels later, and the cop sees Blood get kicked. So the cop is for a moment safe. He's not going to get shot point blank by Blood. And then 2 panels later, while Blood's getting off the front of the car, the cop is between them in the background running away. And that's just a very small bit of closure to the sort of extras blocking, these 4 sort of non-speaking characters or like less supporting characters. It's not Baroness, it's not Blood in this scene. It's a small thing, but I really appreciate it because it's a little bit of proof that Baroness can be turned back to good or can be motivated. It's not just like abstractly, oh, we assume her parents got away, or oh, yeah, she interrupted, so we didn't see that 4th cop get shot, so he didn't get shot. No, we definitely see him not get shot, and we see him run away, and it's a very small thing. And that panel where, panel 3 on page 9, where Baroness says, you wanted me, you got me, and the cop is running away, that panel would still work perfectly fine if Milana hadn't drawn that little figure of the cop running away in the center of the panel between the hero and the villain. But I appreciate that Williamson and Milana are keeping track of the number of cops who are in the scene, the number who've been taken out, and the number who've been saved.
Yeah, very good. But it all comes to naught because ultimately they are scooped up by Raptor to be taken to the safe house. I did, just closing out this initial sequence, I did say Baroness's parents earlier because, as I think I discussed with Jason last week, they have been established as Baroness's parents, as she has described them. She seems to be concerned for their welfare, both in this sequence and then they're used as a threat later on. Where we're so used to a twist or thwarting of our expectation of something being, quite as it is, it seems like almost another thwarting of our expectation that maybe they're just playing it down the line that they are Baroness's parents. I still think it's entirely possible next issue we might find out that they're not her parents.
They're actors.
But who knows? Who knows, Tim? Well, do you have a feeling or an expectation as to whether this is playing it down straight down the line, or that there is going to be a twist on this one?
You just now, and you and Jason last week, covered my full range of expectations for this. Something that I like about page 10, this net that has grabbed Cover Girl and this net that grabs the Baroness, and this is sort of a meta contextual thing, but there's a really long letter in the letters page from a Mike Morano of Toronto, Canada, who refers to the 5-part miniseries from the animated series. Mm-hmm. And Joshua Williamson responds, "I'm a big fan of the structure of those 5-part cartoon minis and looked at the math of those as I put together the first story arc. It was a great way to showcase the team in different locations and challenges. And I'm really proud of how we did that in the first arc. So expect more of that from our future issues." I am not seeing that here, but when you say 5-part miniseries, I think of certain images and story beats from the 4 G.I. Joe 5-part miniseries. And one of them involves a Joe or two caught in a net. And so here's a Joe and a Joe caught in a net, right? So whether is it Duke and Snake Eyes in the first part of the Weather Dominator? I think that's right. I don't think this is a reference to that, but I was already thinking, oh, like the cartoon episode. And then in the letters pages, Wilson's like, yeah, the cartoons. So then
we're back at the pit in the next bit of the story we have
that alien
Clutch and
we have that alien metal man. I really like this establishing shot that Milana does here, where Risk has an off-panel balloon, and there's a caption on the top left that just says "The Pit." Mm-hmm. I have enjoyed all of the establishing shots of the pit in previous issues where you see it, from far away in silhouette or in profile. And here it's more in close-up and we're looking down on it, but we are reminded that it's a giant geometric hole in the ground with gantry elevator and construction crane to bring equipment in. And I thought it was just I thought it was an efficient use of a sort of a not very tall panel.
Yeah, you've commented before that each time we're checking in on the pit that we're sort of seeing it in various states of development or repair. Yeah. And here we're sort of seeing this, like you say, geometrical shape of something on these 4 struts being lifted way above the ground. So are these kind of some sort of elevator type device that's got the main body of the pits lifted up and would then potentially come down,
and then a container which is hanging from a crane. So that's being, I think, loaded onto the platform or maybe put down in the space separately. And on that platform, there are 4 tiny, I'm going to say, Joe Kubert clothespin people. Mm-hmm. And then to the left of it, there are 6 more. And then in the bottom corner of the panel, there are 4 more. I think these are people. I think these are construction workers, mm-hmm. or, Joe support construction workers, which is another reminder of the scale of the pit.
Support clothes pegs.
Right.
So we're given a bit of, I guess we're sort of just given a little bit of storytelling logic as to why it makes sense that Hound is hanging about with the Joe team, despite this, Decepticon Autobot conflict happening in the wider story.
You're saying that all other things being equal, he should definitely say, "I have to leave," mm-hmm. but he's explaining why he can't.
Exactly. Okay. So we're given a fairly satisfying reason as to why that is.
There are 2 things that happen here on page 11. There are 2 more things on page 11. The one that we're looking at right now that I like. Mm-hmm. There's this device. I don't know if it has a name. It might just be like a kind of irony or sort of like converse parallel narration. but in the third and fourth panels, one character is describing a situation or a character, and then it's the opposite. So Duke says, oh, you don't know Clutch like I do. He isn't some government spook. He's got nothing to hide. And then it's almost a joke that on the next panel,
cut
Clutch
to
absolutely has something to hide. And I think I don't like this kind of sort of light joke when it's played really broadly in a hammy sitcom. It's like, like the parents are in the hallway and it's like, but what about Billy? He said he was going to bring that girl home. It's like, Billy's not interested in girls. And then the canned laughter kicks in, and then we cut to the inside of the room and like Billy's there hiding his girlfriend. And he's like so nervous. It's like, no, that's not funny. But here, this is just done with a lighter touch. And I did smile and sort of chuckle at it.
This bit of business between Duke and Risk as well is a kind of reminder as well that Clutch isn't some government spook or possibly even a soldier. I mean, his background in terms of this Energon universe is still somewhat unknown. We don't necessarily know a huge amount of about him other than he's Duke's buddy who was brought in and is kind of in the team because he was there in the Duke miniseries. But yeah, he was working at this sort of auto wreck place. He sort of fixes up cars. He can drive them, but we don't necessarily know. And he's got this history with Duke, but we don't necessarily know exactly.
That's true. At the same time, Williamson has said and says in the letters page, my starting point is always the file cards, the dossiers. Mm-hmm. And so whatever military stuff is in the 1982 toy file card, I take as likely canon for this Clutch. There's so many things happening on this page that I like. I've given Lee Loughridge a little bit of a hard time for the colors not being brighter, poppier, more emotional, and less sort of physical. But there is something neat happening on this page. The first panel, exterior of the pit, has a bit of a green yellow cast. The second panel, where Duke and Risk are somewhere inside, has a blue cast. And then the third panel, which is in a different area, but like not in that room or garage, has sort of a yellow-gray cast. And then the two panels with Clutch and Hound have sort of this pink, sort of brown cast. So there is some color differentiation going on. I would like more. And then two more things that are happening here, because there apparently are 17 things that I like on this page. I guess number 4, Duke and Risk are having this conversation, but they're not just standing around. And this is something that I learned when I was animating on a TV show in 2001. The animators were sitting around talking about what scenes we were going to pick. It's like, oh, I want scene 5 and I want scene 13. And one of the animators had the two lead characters talking. I think I've told this before on Talking Joe. And we were looking at his storyboard, and the director points and says, "What is he doing?" And the animator said, "Oh, he's peeling an orange." And these just two characters are talking, sitting on a bench in front of the soccer field behind school. And they all, every episode, they'd have some conversation sitting in front of the soccer field. And it's this reminder to give your characters some business, give them something to do. And this panel would be okay if Duke and Risk were walking down a hallway or sitting in the control room looking at a computer screen or a map or thumbing through files. I don't want them to do nothing, but look what they're doing. They're doing target practice in the shooting range. And that's a thing that Joes would do. It's they could also be doing this in the weight room or in the rec room playing pool. But whatever it is, Joshua Williamson, kudos, give them something to do. The next time you read a comic and characters are just talking, ask yourself if they're doing something that sort of relates to their profession or personality. It's no, they're not cutting each other's hair, right? They're not shopping for boots. They're both practicing shooting. Okay, and then item number 5 of this page that I like, on the bottom panel, we're reminded that the ceilings aren't very tall. I mean, they're very tall for people, but they're not tall enough for Hound to stand upright. So he is kneeling down, not to talk to Clutch because it's easier, because he can't stand up. And then you can go to the next image, right? we have this sort of cheat where Andrea Milana draws him still kneeling in the second panel, but has sort of like raised the roof and placed the quote camera higher than the roof is so we can get this downward view.
This
and
particular angle.
It's a very small thing, but when you draw Transformers comics, you have to think about this because Transformers are always sort of fitting into and next to spaces that are scaled for people. And it's hard. Like, it's easy when it's the first episodes from 1984 and they're just standing on a mountain in Washington or Oregon. But then you do an episode in season 2 where they go to the city and they're at a dance club or like a diner or something. And it's like, oh, well, the diner's got ceilings that are 8 feet tall.
And this bit of Hound sort of being all, I need Energon. I've had none since I emerged. How big a Transformers-y thing is this, that the Transformers need a regular supply of Energon or get weak?
We don't know yet in this new continuity. Over in Transformers, Daniel Warren Johnson has both the Autobots on Earth and also back on Cybertron. They're all quite low on Energon. And there have been, I think, 2 cases now, 1 or 2 or 3, where someone has said, we only have enough Energon to do this one thing. Or there are 4 of us injured here. We only have enough Energon to power up one of our injured friends, right? Or, oh, here we go. In Transformers 22, which I just happen to be holding on to right here. I won't spoil it for you folks, but there are 2 characters on Cybertron in front of a space bridge, a portal back to Earth. A character says, we only have power to send one of us back, right? And then there's this dramatic thing that happens.
and a reminder that to get the whole Energon G.I. Joe experience, you need to be reading Transformers.
Yes.
Because this issue particularly is about half G.I. Joe, really, I would classify.
So even in the 80s cartoon, and I think in the Marvel, 80s comic, like humans, we need to eat 2 or 3 or 4 times a day. And we have a sense of like how much a kid or a grown-up should eat, or a sedentary person, or like a soldier or an athlete. I don't think it's been fully defined. It's like, oh, do you need 1 glass of Energon, or you have to eat like 2 Energon cubes per day or per hour? It's never been defined. But my abstract sense of it in the Energon universe is that there's very little Energon for the Autobots under Daniel Warren Johnson's purview. They're all in a lot of trouble. But at the same time, Hound here says, I need Energon. I've had none since I emerged. So we can start to do a little sort of math, like since he emerged, that's the Free Comic Book Day. That's the Energon Universe special, right? That came out in May. In terms of story time, not publishing time, is that 2 days ago or a week ago? I don't feel like it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I feel like they just sent Baroness and Cover Girl on this mission.
And Clutch says that he knows where to find someone and he knows just the snakes who have it. So the fact he says that he knows the snakes that have it, presumably he's saying if he finds Cobra, then he'll find Energon, right? My other thought was, but we also saw the Dreadnoks in Florida. They had a bunch of Energon sort of underwater, but I don't think Clutch knows about that, so that can't be the thing. It must be somehow he needs to get to Cobra and get their Energon, but that sounds like a big mission.
So are Clutch and Hound, or Clutch by himself, gonna go off now for an issue or 3 or 5 on a solo or duo mission to grab a Cobra agent or re-infiltrate Cobra base, which they just got out of by the
skin of their teeth?
Yes, the skin of their teeth. And then also sort of how long, let's take bets, Mark, and listeners, viewers, chime in, please, in the comments, and Mark can put them on screen. How many issues until another Joe, until all the Joes see Hound?
I don't know. I'm tempted to think it might. Well, this is like famous last words, but I'm tempted to think they might stretch it out for a little while, but then probably it'll be the page turn of the next issue. So who knows?
Yeah, some things in the Energon universe move very fast, and some things move quite slow. I'm starting to think, Baroness isn't going to be a Cobra villain, partnered with Destro for 30 or 40 issues now. And I can barely concept in my head, reading these comics as physical objects that someone has written and drawn and published, that we're all still like supporting it 30 or 40 months from now. I can sort of picture ahead, to 10 issues in the future, because they've talked about Void Rivals 25, and at San Diego they'll talk about the upcoming 6 or 8 or 12 months.
I was just going to say that when it comes to Clutch as well, touching back on what you're saying about the file card and that being the starting point that they reference as being kind of their North Star of how they approach these characters. And this is on screen. At the moment, I've got his file card from 3djoes.com, your home of high-res scans of all of this kind of stuff. And on his file card, the most interesting stuff there is that he was a mechanic in Manny's Mean Machines and was heavily involved in racing street machines. And then around his personal appearance at the bottom, he greases his hair with motor oil, rarely shaves, and chews on the same toothpick for months. Clutch still calls women chicks and offends them to the extent that they will dye their hair, apparently, according to the back of this book. But within there as well, in the middle section of the card, it does say that he graduated Advanced Infantry Training, Covert Ops School, Executive Bodyguard School, Ranger School, and qualified expert in all manner of weaponry. So while the most interesting things about him might be some of the other colourful things, if we are to take the file card as the holy grail here, that he certainly has got a significant amount of military experience too.
Yeah, if he's an Army Ranger, isn't Stalker a Ranger?
I believe so, yeah.
Sometimes I think of some Joes as less trained or less qualified because they're just a vehicle driver, or they don't show up in as many comics. They don't have as many appearances in the big deal stories, Stalker and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. They're the best. No. All 200 Joes are the best, and anyone else out there is starting at number 201 best. So, the least sort of qualified or highly skilled G.I. Joe character can still beat up all of us and not break a sweat, and then go climb a mountain and, parachute down and drive a Jeep.
And the next scene of this particular book, with Mercer finding this guy in this prison / hospital, and then he finds that he's drawn this big mural almost of Starscream on the wall before then shooting him in the back of the head. This points to that element that I was just saying a few minutes ago, that to get the full Energon G.I. Joe story, you kind of need to be paying attention to what's going on in the pages of Transformers, because this scene only really makes sense if you have been reading Transformers, in particular issues 13 and 14, where there was this Mars crew that was introduced that found Starscream in this volcano, sort of pulled him out, attached him to a HISS tank, with them then subsequently basically coming to a sticky end and being wiped out, apart from this one guy who's an artist that Starscream had a soft spot for, because I guess of his narcissism, that he enjoyed being drawn, and left him alive so that he could kind of document Starscream in the form of drawings. So that is the character that we are introduced to in this particular scene.
Agent Martin.
So he's gone a little bit nuts from his experience. He's drawing pictures of Starscream on the walls, but Destro and Mercer feel that what they have found out about him and his experiences may be of use to them, and don't want that story spread too far elsewhere.
If so, I had forgotten a bit of Transformers 13 and 14, and folks, if this seems like a big surprise, Starscream getting sort of welded, the top half of Starscream getting welded to a hiss tank, made the cover of Transformers number 14. That was the B cover, drawn by series artist Jorge Corona. But I got to this scene, and I'm always a little frowny when in movies or comics there's a kid and the kid draws something, and then you see what the kid has drawn, and it is clearly something drawn by an adult, kind of trying to draw like how a kid draws, like someone in the props department, you know, for a movie or TV show, like draws like a kid drawing, and then they've got this 4-year-old on set, and they like hold up a picture of like the kid in the house and the parent, and it's like, no, that's what we think 4-year-olds draw like. That's actually not what 4-year-olds draw like. Or when a novice draws something from memory, it's like much better than it would be. And I had forgotten when I got to this page of Agent Martin painting something all over the wall. I'd forgotten that he was an artist. I just thought he was a, you know, Mars guy who was spared the fate of his 3 fellow crew team members, mates. And I turn the page and I see this very, very good drawing of Starscream from memory, but also like drawn from below and like lit from below because of the shadows on his chin and his sort of his cheekbones and like the bridge of his nose. And I thought, oh, come on, Andrea Milana, this crazy guy wouldn't. But no, Mark has reminded me that not only can Agent Martin draw, it was a plot point. It like shows up in 2 different scenes. And when those issues came out, you and I had no idea where that was going to go. But it stood out that of these 4 disparate type humans who are working in this volcano with this altered hiss tank that doesn't have a gun turret. It has a crane for lifting. One of them is drawing on a sketch pad. You know, like you'd only call that out if it's going to be important later on. So that when you kill him, it's sad.
Yeah.
There's one more bit of business that I really like on this page. In that second panel where Destro's on the phone with Mercer, you're going to tell the commander, no, this is just for us. In the background, Cobra Commander is pointing, and I love that. There's no indication that Cobra Commander can hear Destro's half of the conversation or Mercer's half of the conversation. Cobra Commander is present, right? So you can feel a little tension. You can feel a little sort of crafty joy that Destro is not looping in Cobra Commander because they are keeping things from each other, and Destro really doesn't like being kept out of it. And Cobra Commander has said, I'm not going to let you in on everything, or only as you need to know. And I just love this body language of hand behind back in sort of like regal commander pose and pointing at scientific thing that scientific guy is carting away, right? Like, oh, Cobra Commander's busy, but he's here, so you know that he's around. Because it's almost like if he wasn't there, you'd sort of wonder, like, oh, does Cobra Commander have the phone bugged?
And a little reminder as well that Cobra Commander is someone with Energon, because presumably that is Energon something in those tanks that he is pointing at.
Mark, do we know where this Cobra... Okay, so this like prison where Agent Martin is, right? We're sort of cutting back and forth between the exterior of the prison and the sort of path that Mercer takes to get inside, where there are 2 dead guards outside. There's a hallway of dead psychiatric doctors, and then Mercer standing at the door looking through the window, right? And that cross cuts with Agent Martin actually in the jail or in the cell. We don't know where this like prison is, right? But we also don't need to know. Okay, so the Cobra base on the next page where Destro's on the phone and Cobra Commander's in the back. Do we know where this is?
We can guess that it's probably Springfield. So this is the location that we've been shown where Cobra has a base, and which is where they retreated back to from Destro's location near Washington.
Right, after issue 6.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And at the very end of issue 6, they retreat back to Springfield, which is where we saw them last. Home of pits of robotic snakes, Springfield. Then I guess back in the what Major Blood calls his safe house. we find Cover Girl and Baroness at the bottom of a pit, illuminated from above by with Major Blood there, and time for a cat fight. So trying to pitch Cover Girl and Baroness to fight for his twisted amusement, but making the decision to not want to kill Baroness, because while he would quite like to have his revenge, he realised that she's made a lot of enemies and would actually more enjoy selling her on and getting the money.
Mark, I wanted to ask you about 3 word balloons on this page. It's Baroness's dialogue. So Baroness and Cover Girl have been taken captive by a raptor, and they are at a total disadvantage here in this sunken cylindrical pit, jail cell, prison cylinder, lower than Major Blood. They can't climb out, right? The walls are sheer. There's no ladder, there's no stairs. And Baroness says, "Blood, I know you're angry, but you must understand that my attack on you at the pit was a matter of self-preservation. And you and I are cut from the same cloth. Is revenge really necessary?" And she's got this expression on her face that is sort of like, mea culpa, like, hey, we can get along, right? And I wasn't quite
guys.
I wasn't quite sure how to take this, because she is she's a mercenary, and she's cruel with an R, not cool. And there's that line where which you did earlier in the episode, where she tries to disarm Raptor by saying she's never heard of him and she's heard of everyone. And so I thought, is she actually trying to reason with Blood? Because surely she must know that that's not going to work. So what is this? Is she... Greg Augustin says, thought it was odd how Baroness tried to appeal to reason. So Mark, what is your take on the dialogue here, her body language, and that expression on her face?
Yeah, I think what she's trying to do is just endear herself to Major Blood, sort of say, I'm no hero. I'm not, all I'm doing is trying to look out for myself. Just like, you and I, we're not so unalike, that kind of thing. But yeah, ultimately probably being a bit naive that she thinks she can appeal to his reason, given how unhinged we have seen that he is.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
So very small chance that this is going to work, but she might as well try. And then I guess maybe from a sort of mechanical writing perspective, if she appears reasonable here, even if it's hopeless, then when he continues with his threat and his evil, he, by contrast, is that much more unreasonable. Scotty Cameron says, "Weasel her way out of it."
Yeah,
I think her dialogue here is a bit of a throwaway. Like, very small chance it's going to work, but the scene actually, I think the scene sort of needs her to say something like this, because the alternative is she's sort of indignant and says, like, I won't speak to you, or like, I won't dignify that with a response, and that's just going to make him more angry. Or she sort of threatens him. It's like, I'm going to climb up there and kill you, and that's an empty threat, because she definitely can't, right? She doesn't have any sort of weapon on her hidden, like a knife. They're at such a disadvantage. So maybe sort of mechanically she has to say some version of this. Like, come on. Barking Fridge says she's stalling. Because maybe in the back of my mind I did sort of wonder, like, oh, while she's saying this, is she, pulling a tiny blade out of her, like belt that we didn't see, so she can, they're not tied up, but so she can cut the ropes.
Yeah. And did you see this small detail here on this particular page as well? If you look at Major Blood, that a chunk of his ear seems to be missing as well. So it wasn't just his eye that he lost, but also a little chunk of ear.
Well, now I want to go back and look at every previous panel of it. Oh, he's wearing his helmet. I can't. Helmet. Yeah. Okay. So, And now we're getting to the final 4 pages of the comic where he says, you got to fight. And Raptor's still out there. And then Baroness does get indignant. You just want to mess with us. You'll kill her anyway and then sell me off. Just get it over with already. And then, how about this? Stop being such a blank and try to take out my eye yourself. So how do you feel about this this choice that Blood gives them?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely leans into kind of that character that he's unhinged and, you know, slightly diabolical and enjoying all of those things of seeing blood, seeing, you know, trying to pit allies against each other. Yeah, a little bit maniacal, but also it, you know, again, sort of feels a little bit like Joshua Williamson, sort of like having a bit of tropey fun of throwing all of these kind of different ideas of, you know, pitting allies against each other, having them in an arena of sport, having this sort of diabolical kind of bad guy who is, you know, there's somewhat two-dimensional in terms of, yeah, he's just a bad guy, and every time you see him he seems to be worse. But yeah, it's you know, still fun. And I guess the payoff really is that you kind of, you know, out of the two of them, your expectation would be that Cover Girl is the one who, you know, has to be whiter than white and have the higher moral ground, and Baroness be the one that sort of gives in to this kind of threat because she's the baddie and there's the higher stakes with her parents. But
we're about to spoil the final page, folks, if you haven't read it.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it.
Everything is to be seen and believed, Infinite Entertainment said that the final page made him shout holy, and he's bleeped himself out loud. My dogs did not appreciate it. I love that. So it was shocking there were dogs as your reaction to reading a comic. So that final page turn, if it is to be believed, it looks like Cover Girl is driving that dagger, the blood drop down to them, into her back with a sort of, you know, as we talked about, that bold, emotional red background, but also we see Baroness being pushed forward as Cover Girl is putting her fists into her back with a splatter of blood seeming to come away from her back. You are right, Baroness. I should be more like you. How much on face value did you take this particular scene, Tim?
I am always a little bit still that 5th, 6th grader who first read comics when I read comics. So when something like this happens, a lot of me still thinks to take it as presented, that there isn't you know, the next issue. It's like, oh, I actually had the metal tray from the cafeteria in the back of my blouse so the knife wouldn't, you know, penetrate my skin. Or like, oh, we'd planned it this way. Like, oh, she missed all of my vital organs. I think Cover Girl has really just stabbed Baroness in the back. Part of why I always believe this kind of thing is that I want the maximum surprise or sort of dramatic reveal for whatever does come in next month's issue. And with, you know, TV shows and movies, particularly if I'm seeing a trailer, I can start to assemble the story, even if scenes are missing and out of order, or, you know, if a show's written kind of well or not well, I can maybe sort of see what's coming. With comics, I think I'm still very much a kid, and I want the sort of maximum effect, as if I'm that young kid again. So I have no concept that or how anything that we're not seeing is what will happen. In terms of what's actually sort of being written here for effect, viewers, listeners, previously in their conversation in Paris during the Raptor attack, Baroness is saying to Cover Girl, you have to be more like me. You know, you can't worry about saving everyone. We're just here to do our job, and I'm going to try and save my parents, and that's it. And as Mark just alluded to, we're expecting Cover Girl, who's this, established G.I. Joe character, and all the Joes are good, and they never, do the bad thing when they can do the good thing. They certainly don't stab their friends in the back. Actually, we are expecting on this final page, Cover Girl to also be defiant and say, "Yeah, blood, we're both going to stand up to you," and that is not what happens. So, so that's cool. And I don't know how this will work out.
Yeah, I'm sort of seeing a page like this. I'm sort of, my mind is branching off in two directions almost. It's like, well, okay, it could play it on face value. Maybe she has just been stabbed in the background. But if she wasn't, how would you then approach that? How would you interpret that? I'm thinking like, well, Cover Girl's got all of these wounds herself, which are bleeding. Maybe she's, using some of her own blood to make it look like Baroness is also bleeding, that kind of thing. Although, there is a definite splatter being implied here, so who knows?
Now that I've had a moment to think about what could happen next, no one asked me to, but suddenly I feel like I should. Maybe what happens is Cover Girl is trying this desperate attempt to lure blood down into the pit, not the G.I. Joe headquarters, the like small physical ditch pit, because if Baroness bleeds out, then blood doesn't get the satisfaction of killing her. So Raptor says, "Oh no, I wanted to do that." He jumps down, and then both of them can take him out, and then climb up or something, and then then Cover Girl can immediately tend to Baroness's wounds, which should be life-threatening, but maybe a couple pages into next issue, there's a little bit of that amnesia about how terrible a wound was, and she can sort of bandage her up, and they can sort of limp back to a payphone or a taxi or something and get back to the States.
Yeah, you get some elements which are definite. One issue continues into the next, but then you also have fuzzy comic book logic that people have got a month to recover from their wounds, kind of thing. Yeah. Actually, one of my observations, which I forgot to mention, actually, was the kind of a slight oddity with the way that this particular issue began, which was that it essentially starts with a page turn from exactly the previous issue, because the previous issue ended with Raptor saying Major Blood demands your audience, and then the first part of this issue is page one, panel one is a reply to that sentence from the Baroness: "Tell Blood that I politely decline his invitation," which is an interesting. And this certainly wouldn't happen in the 80s, where any issue could be your first, and that particular page turn would work much better in trade, where it is, okay, previous page, turn the page, this is the reply to that next sentence. It's unusual that you would have an issue where you end with one line of dialogue and reply to it as the first line of dialogue in the next.
So Robert Kirkman is not writing this book, but he does co-own the company, and he has said many times of his writing for The Walking Dead that he's very aware of how one issue ends and the next issue starts. And there are dozens and dozens of issues of The Walking Dead where, just like this, there's a big reveal or punchy moment on the final page of an issue. And then the first page of the next issue is just the next page. We're not jumping ahead a minute. We're not zooming around halfway around the world, and we're not jumping ahead an hour or a week. And Kirkman is very aware of how this will read in a 6-issue paperback or a 12-issue hardcover, particularly since those soft covers do not include the covers as chapter breaks. And so I don't know if Kirkman and Joshua Williamson have talked about this. Williamson has previously written a series for Skybound, right? And or maybe Williamson was going to do something like this separate from sort of Kirkman's own personal method here. But yeah, I mean, both of them very much write for the, quote, write for the trade, are thinking of a series of issues as how they're going to read when bound in a bigger book, which is not to say that they are slowing things down, dragging things out, or making a 20-page unit as a single issue less satisfying than it might be. And there was some of that when, quote, writing for the trades became a phenomenon in 2001 and 2002 and 2003.
But what they're definitely doing in these issues is ending each one on a cliffhanger that you do want to find out what happens on that next page from a monthly collecting point of view. In the comments, there was an interesting observation from Infinite Entertainment, which is this is sort of how Cover Girl died in the live action films, in terms of Cover Girl was stabbed from behind, although in this case from Zartan. So he came behind her, stabbed her through the back, the blade pointed out of her chest. So there's an interesting parallel there between I don't think it's necessarily conscious or just anything other than an interesting parallel between Cover Girl being stabbed in the comics universe and her being the stabber here. Right. So what a way to finish this particular issue. Be a really, really good, powerful cliffhanger to pick up the next one. And if you do want to see a little bit of a hint as to what happens in the next issue, you can head on over to the Talking Joe Facebook group, where this morning I did post a preview from Skybound of the covers and 3 pages from the book.
One more little thing to say about this issue, and one more big thing, Mark. The little thing is that, so previously, all these Energon Universe issues had 3 pages of ads showing covers for the next 3 Energon Universe comics with dates. And a month or 2 ago, those 3 pages were squeezed down to 2. And now there's this page that comes right after the letters page, and it's called Energon Experience. And it's got a little blurb from the publisher, and then a spotlight on a character, and then another spotlight on a moment, and then one question and answer with one of the creators. And I really liked the first one, and I thought this one was okay, and it's a different one in Transformers. So this one
seems to be, yeah.
Yeah, so this one is
specific to just one issue.
Yeah, so it's not the same for all comics in a month. This one is Cover Girl and Clutch, and then a question for Andrea Milana, whereas a contrast in Transformers, which came out a week or 2 earlier, it's about Elita 1, and then a cameo from an editor, and then a question for Jorge Corona, who draws the issue of Transformers. So in terms of like fun added character bits or Q&A with a writer or artist, I'm sort of enjoying 33% of this page, because the thing about Cover Girl and the thing about Clutch, I know these things already because I'm reading all the books and they're not illuminating. They're fun. It's not quite filler, but I'd like a little bit more. I do like the question for the artist, the question for the other artist. So I'd like a little bit more beef on this all beef patty, but it's better than just a larger ad for the other comics that are coming out. But
yeah, don't give Tim a quarter pounder, give him a third pounder, please.
But Mark, please go back to that image you just put up, and if you can, zoom in on the top portion. Sean Makowitz, publisher, says the Energon crew, including some new additions, recently convened to chart the future of these titles into 2026 and beyond. Don't worry, Josh and Tom aren't going anywhere after the upcoming Dreadnought War, but do keep an eye on Cobra Commander and Night Force as its roster continues to grow. But why? So, if I'm reading this correctly, Dreadnought War is G.I. Joe Volume 3, which is issues 13 through 18, and we are confident that Tom Reilly is drawing all of that arc. And then I'd assumed, because I'm pessimistic about really amazing artists staying on my favorite titles for a long time, because they don't, I just assumed that Tom Reilly would go off and do something else. He would draw something great for DC, maybe with Joshua Williamson, or something creator-owned with Joshua Williamson, maybe for Image. But it seems that Tom Reilly is going to draw something else G.I. Joe or Transformers or Void Rivals related after the next 6 issues of G.I. Joe. And look at me already getting my hopes up so they can be dashed. It's just going to be covers or something, right? It's going to be like one pinup. It's going to be like a 1 in 100 ratio variant for one issue. Anyway, but it sounds to me like Tom Reilly is going to draw something beyond 6 more issues of G.I. Joe for G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe adjacent. And that is awesome.
And it does hint again at Night Force. And in the letters page, it says, these Night Force missions are key to the series and the subplots that we are building. So yeah, expect a lot of big moves in each of them. Can't speak to any future spin-offs, as that would spoil some of our plans. However, keep reading. So they can't speak of any future spin-offs, but maybe there will be some future spin-offs.
And then Joshua Williamson says, thank you for writing in. These letters are a highlight of working on G.I. Joe in the Energon Universe. It's great feedback and inspiring. And I feel like as a grumpy older fan, I expect every single letters page editor, assistant editor in every comic that even still have letters pages to say nice things like, thanks for all the letters. Letters are great, write letters. But the nice folks in the Energon Universe keep very specifically saying, we really like getting your letters, folks. Please keep sending us letters. And this feels, maybe it feels more genuine just because there are fewer comics with letters pages, or maybe it feels genuine because we've had a couple of these people on the show, or maybe it feels genuine because I'm an eternal optimist and Tom Reilly is going to draw G.I. Joe forever. Or in the past, I know that a comic like G.I. Joe did not get a lot of letters, or maybe it feels possible to get a letter printed because Mark and I, both gotten letters printed. I know I do this every so often, but I just want to encourage you to write an email, even if it's 2 sentences, saying something specifically that you like, and if you have it, something specifically that you don't. Not necessarily because you're going to get the thing you like, or you can get them to stop doing the thing that you don't. But I don't know about Mark. I would keep doing Talking Joe if we had no comments during a live stream, and if we had no, email and comments on the Facebook, because I know abstractly that some people out there are listening. But it is really nice when someone, quote, calls in or sends in a note and says something specific. And these are still people. Scotty Cameron says, make sure to shout out Talking Joe in your letters. These people who make these comics, the editors too, are people. And yes, it's a job and they're professionals and they should always do their best work and they should be professional. But sometimes it's hard, or someone gets sick, or there's a crazy convention schedule in the summer and then they're behind schedule. And so when some fans, write in and say, this is really good, here's what I like, it sounds so quaint, but it's true. It makes them feel better. That's good for them. And then maybe they'll keep doing a great job. So everyone, please send in some email.
So for editorial balance and making the editors feel better, let's find out a way if we can also make them feel worse. Tim, this last page of the book, that I'm putting on the screen now, is this how it appears to you on your printed copy? And so this is the cover gallery. Collect all of these exciting Energon Universe covers, and specifically bottom right-hand cover. Does it say Ito and then a picture of the Tom Reilly cover? Yeah, it does.
No, there's a copy and paste error. Someone, maybe the designer's intern made an error, and the Tom Reilly cover has been accidentally reproduced twice on this back cover, and we don't get to see the oil painting of the Baroness by Ito.
Error detected. Error detected. No prize incoming.
If I if I didn't look carefully, I would look at this and think, oh, A cover is Tom Reilly, and then E cover must be the same cover by Tom Reilly, but with shiny foil or something, because that's a gimmick they do. Hey, speaking of gimmicks, how long until we get a blind bag variant? Because there was that Invincible Universe.
Very successful.
There was the Invincible Universe Battle Beast #1 blind bag, and then it was just announced that is that still in the bag, Mark?
It's in an open bag, so let's just do this quickly.
Okay, so all right, so wait, before we pull it out, right? So Invincible Universe Presents Battle Beast #1 was a comic with a $4.99 cover price, and it had like an A and a B and a C cover, and then a bunch of like ratio variants, like 1 in 10, 1 in 5, 1 in 50, 1 in 100, 1 in 250. And then there was this other variant where it comes sealed in a bag that Mark is holding, and it's red, and it's got this face on it. And you don't know which variant you're going to get. And the object that Mark is holding had a cover price of $9.99. So it was more
no, this was, I think, regular.
I'm sorry.
Price,
okay, I'm thinking of the Batman one, which is upcoming, which I'll complain about in a moment. So, excuse me. So this comic was not $4.99, it was $3.99. And this blind bagged variant, it has like A or B or C or D or E or F cover in it. And you could get any of them except for like the two really, really rare ones. I think there were a number of limited sketch covers by Ryan Otley in there. So he did I don't know how many it was, 50, 100 that he put in blind bags like this. So the luckiest people could actually get an artist sketched cover. And then late in the game, I think just a couple of days before the comic went on sale, well after stores had placed their orders and were starting, I think, to receive their orders, there was a supplemental announcement from Skybound that there were even 3 more unusual things that you might get in this bag. You might get, I can't believe it, a reprint of the issue of Invincible where Battle Beast first shows up. You might get Battle Beast #2, which is nuts to me that you could like buy a regular copy of one and like, I'll press my luck and get a Infinite Entertainment says, I got issue 2 a month early. And that would actually backfire if the only one you bought was the blind bag and you got issue 2, right? This is sort of counting. The logic here requires you to get at least a regular copy, whatever the cover is, so you can read one and then open your blind bag. And this would just be a regular edition of #2. It's not some rare version as far as I know. And then this is so crazy. I think it had foil on it. I think it's distinguishable. Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you. And then the third mystery comic you might get, if it wasn't one of the regular or rare variants of issue 1, was a reprint of the final issue of Marvel Team Up, which was a series that Kirkman was writing at Marvel, which only ran for a year and a half. And that issue, I think it was the final issue, there was a single issue that guest starred Invincible. And this was a really unusual intercompany crossover because it wasn't like a discrete, separate one-shot or miniseries. It was just the next issue of Marvel Team Up, and it's got Spider-Man and Invincible on it, and was drawn by, I think, Ryan Otley. I get him and Corey Walker mixed up. I'm so sorry. I think it was Corey. There you go. I think it was Corey Walker. The second one, and the deal that Skybound would have to make with Marvel, I'm guessing months in advance. It's like, okay, we want to reprint this comic where our character meets your character, but it's your comic because Image didn't publish that. It's not like Invincible meets Spider-Man. It's just an issue of Marvel Team Up, which was like a Spider-Man team up book that Kirkman wrote in 2002 or so. And this is me imagining Skybound pitching it to Marvel like a year ago. And we're not going to make it available like a normal comic. It's going to be in a blind bag for a different comic. And to me, it is the same level of clever surprise of the original Void Rivals issue #1 Energon Universe reveal that this is a shared universe with Transformers and G.I. Joe because these 2 aliens just found Jetfire on this moon. And okay, so period. That's all funny and crazy. Before you take that out, the reason why I'm now a little frowny about blind bags is that the next one coming down the pike will be published by DC. It's going to be the Matt Fraction Jorge Jimenez Batman #1, which is out in September. That comic's going to have a lot of variant covers, and there's going to be a blind bag version where you get any of the covers, I guess, and I believe it's $9.99. So you're paying for the privilege of gambling, and you might get, I guess, the regular cover, which is not a $10 comic. And then I guess Dynamite, I think, just announced that Dynamite will be doing a blind bag variant for something. And knowing Dynamite, they'll go too far because they regularly have more than 26, I'm not kidding, variants for their #1s. Mark, what comic book did you get?
Yeah, the appeal for me was the fact that it was, cover price, same as cover price,
Okay.
and meant that you could just have a bit of fun with it. Of like, well, I want to get this anyway, so let's see. It might get something special. So this one, I actually bought 3 copies of this. I got a number 2. I got a blank variant, and then I got a one that looked like this.
Oh, is that the Arthur ad? No, is it on the back cover?
Here we go. Yeah, EJ Sue.
EJ Sue.
This one was.
Okay.
So it does actually have a guide on the back
There you
cover as to what the regular covers were. So this was a regular cover D. So it meant that I could get a D without having to sort of chase that down. But yeah, a lot of...
Or prepay for 10 copies at your store. Because D was the 1 in 10. I guess while we're doing Battle Beast and news, even though it's the end of the episode, this is where we would say this comic has now gone to a 4th printing. The 3rd printing just came out. You'll all remember that Tom Reilly drew the cover for the 3rd printing, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah,
a 4th printing has just been announced, and the colors on that book are great. It's the person who colored Cobra Commander.
And yeah, what's fun about them including Team Up number 14 specifically was because that was left out a lot of their other reprints. So it could be that you've bought the compendium or the trades and you don't have Team Up issue 14 because of that extra complexity around the rights to Spider-Man. And Scotty Cameron notes that it might be that they made that deal when putting together the Transformers compendium, because Transformers issue 3 with Spider-Man is in that, and that was left out of some previous classic Transformers trades. So very interesting. What did
it might also? Yeah, some of this might be sort of someone saying yes or no, you can do this, and some of this might be someone saying you can do this, but it'll cost this much money, and then the other person or company says, oh, we don't want to spend that much. And so maybe Skybound has the clout to make this happen. Maybe it was an even trade, as Scotty Cameron just now perhaps implied. Maybe Skybound was, willing to pony up. Some of it's also about the atmosphere. Marvel and DC this year have announced some high-profile crossovers for later in the year, having just reprinted all the Marvel and DC crossovers and all the amalgam crossovers in these 2 big omnibuy hardcovers. But for the previous 15 years, Marvel and DC were absolutely not publishing any new intercompany crossovers or reprinting any old ones. So it comes and goes. Should we talk one more? Is there anything else to say about G.I. Joe before we sing us out?
We're done with that. But coming up soon in the Energon Universe, Void Rivals issue number 21 is out this week, coming at time of recording, July the 23rd. So in terms of the wider G.I. Joe universe, keep an eye out for potential appearances from Pythona and her crew. In fact, an upcoming issue featuring Pythona art by Danny was just recently revealed for the issue of Void Rivals coming out in October. Then we have Transformers issue 23 coming out August the 13th. Continuing, potentially again might see a bit more of G.I. Joe in that one, although it felt like they kind of wrapped up some of that story in the last issue. And then, of course, on August 20th will be issue number 10 of G.I. Joe, featuring Baroness and Cover Girl on the front cover, alluding to continuation of this story. And indeed, in the blurb, it says, Baroness versus Cover Girl. Meanwhile, has Cobra Commander and Destro's alliance reached its breaking point?
I sort of don't even see this anymore, and I just want to call it out. We're now 2 years into this shared universe, and even though it seems unlikely that someone's first Energon Universe comic book might be G.I. Joe number 9 or Transformers 22, which has the one-page version of the thing that Mark just showed in 2 pages.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But the branding is consistent, right? So like they all say EU on the front cover, top left, and then the page after the letters page, it always says, explore the Energon universe. It has this purple and black Starfield diagonal pattern. And then there's this sentence, which again, I don't see it anymore, but it occurs to me how smart and helpful it is to just keep repeating this. Robert Kirkman's all-new Transformers and G.I. Joe shared universe continues every month in these titles, right? Like, I think if you asked me when this all started, how long are they going to keep sort of this kind of like, check out the other books, keep reading, sort of in-house ads? I don't mean the branding on the front cover. I mean like this sentence. I don't know that I would have thought it would be like 24, 25 months in. It's like, well, everyone knows, the stores will explain it. But, the reason why Coca-Cola is the number one soft drink is because they spend the most on advertising, right? So I appreciate that Skybound keeps reminding people who might be new or even lapsed. Maybe someone bought G.I. Joe or Duke number 1 and was confused because they thought it was the Larry Hama stuff. And then they come back to it. It's like, it's these 3 books. So if this sounds obvious, yeah. And if this is sort of low-hanging fruit, like, good job, Skybound, telling us that thing that is easy to tell us. But I think it's worth calling out that just even that sentence, like everyone who knows comics knows Robert Kirkman, and Transformers and G.I. Joe right there are bold. And I mean, they're a bolded font, right? An all new shared universe continues every month in these titles, right? Like that sentence hits like 6 major points. And then they got the dates. And then as a comic book store owner, I do appreciate a little nod on the bottom. Pre-order upcoming releases with your local comic shop now. It's not like just get them on this, Image Comics Skybound digital service, or go to Amazon and save some money. So thumbs up, marketing and copywriters at Skybound. Good job. Thank you. Good job.
Very good. So just a shout out to some people in the chat. Toy Kind of Mood. Presumably this is Travis heading to work, but wanted to show some love. If you're watching, hit the like button. Thank you, Talking Joe, for keeping me updated with the comic verse. Thank you for the shout out. And I actually just looked at the Talking Joe subscriber count just now. Before we started the show, we were at 987. Currently on my refresh, we are 3 up. We are at 990. So thanks to the 3 people that joined in the space of the last couple of hours, which means that we are 10 away from that magic 1,000.
Remember, folks, when we hit 1,000, Mark has promised me that we will do a live stream where he shaves his head so he can look like Cobra Law Citizen Cobra Commander.
I've promised nothing. And then we've got Matthew just noting that he's playing with new toys and did the 2nd and 3rd page in action figure form while you are on the air. So that sounds great, Matt. Please do post that onto the Facebook group when you have a moment. That'll be a delight to see. So what else is going on? Yeah, we will be back next week as usual, covering all of the ongoing comics that they come out and also other things that are going on. We have got a special interview that we will be recording next week that I can't wait for. And also next week it's going to be San Diego Comic-Con, isn't it? So there will be some interesting news coming out of that I am sure. So if you are new to Talking Joe, talkingjoe.co.uk is the website, and that's the place you can find links to all of the places we are, like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, audio only podcasts, all of that jazz. We do post everything, well, almost everything we do with video nowadays, and also as more tightly edited audio only podcasts. So if you do want to listen audio only on your favorite podcatcher, you are getting an audio enhanced experience with all of the ums and ers cut out, a little bit more condensed.
Framed by the cosmic cube. Transformers Deep Cut.
We are also on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So a big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane V2. This one has a different coloured eye patch and tubing on his arm. Infinite. I'll do that one again. This one has got motorized wings instead of just fabric ones. Plus Infinite Entertainment, Patrick and Gary V. They are all getting early access to episodes as well as exclusive content and a sense of satisfaction in supporting us paying all of our bills. That makes their hearts swell to almost 2 times that of a normal human. Tim, where can you be found when you are not talking to me about G.I. Joe?
Do you like Judd Apatow? Because the next Atomic Abe video focuses on the work of Judd Apatow. Find Atomic Abe at YouTube. I own a comic book store that's in Somerville, Massachusetts, Hub Comics. And I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, A Real American Book. And very, very soon, having wrapped up my Joe Fest 25 report, I will continue my DFW, that's Dallas Fort Worth G.I. Joe and Action Figure Show Convention report. Part 1 is up, working on part 2 right now.
Very good. So just before we wrap up, Tim, can you remind the listeners of a very important thing before we go?
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
And that is us done. Laters.